The Targum Yonatan, the official Eastern Babylonian Targum to the Nevi'im, says on Genesis 11, "And Abram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarah, and the name of the wife of Nahor, Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah, who is Sarah." The Smith's Bible Dictionary says, Iscah, one who looks forth, daughter of Haran, the brother of Abram, and sister of Milcah and of Lot. In the Jewish tradition, she is identified with Sarah. And yet another witness, first century Judaic historian Flavius Josephus, breaks down the dynamics in the Antiquities of the Jews, Book 1, 6 and 5. Now, Abram has two brethren, Nahor and Haran. Of these, Haran left a son, Lot, as also Sarai and Milcah his daughters, and died amongst the Chaldeans, in a city of the Chaldeans called Ur, and his monument is shown to this day. These married their nieces. Nahor married Milcah, and Abram married Sarah. So therefore, Sarah is rightfully the niece of Abraham, not the sister of Abraham. But as with everything, this needs to be put in context. Terah, Abram's father, took Lot, Milcah, and Sarah, his grandchildren by way of his son Haran, into his house. After Haran's death, that is why Lot is also referred to as Abraham's brother. Genesis 14, 12 through 14. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. And there came one that had escaped, and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner. And these were confederate with Abram. And when Abram heard this, his brother was taken captive. He armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. And though Sarah was also his niece, this is why Abram referred to her as his sister. Genesis 20 and 12. And yet indeed she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. This kind of marriage has a name. It's called an avunculate marriage, and it took place under the Hebraic clause of the kinsman redeemer. According to the Baker Evangelical Dictionary of Biblical Theology, a kinsman redeemer is a male relative who, according to various laws found in the Pentateuch, which is the Torah, had the privilege or responsibility to act for a relative who was in trouble, danger, or in need of vindication. These young ladies had lost their father. Remember, this is not the United States. This was a patrilineal society in which men serve as heads of every important social, cultural, or political institution. Patriarchy was the way of life. According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, the term avunculate means a special relationship obtaining among some tribal peoples between a nephew and his maternal uncle. Authority of a man over his sister's family affairs, but especially over her children, and the reciprocal rights and responsibilities associated therewith. According to BibleArchaeology.org, the practice of uncle-niece avunculate marriage was legal under Jewish law and common among many royal families of the day. So even today, modern royal families marry within their own lineage. Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip are cousins. Prince Charles and Princess Diana were cousins. Even Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are cousins. According to Royal Central, avunculate marriages between a niece and an uncle weren't unheard of in European royal houses at the time, and while there was debate about the close level of relationship involved, papal dispensation were given for such unions to take place. So even the world-famous Rothschilds family married within their own bloodline to protect their inheritance. Let's look at another biblical example of an avunculate marriage. Joshua 15, verses 16 and 17 says, And Caleb said, He that smiteth Kiriath-sepher and taketh it, to him will I give Exah, my daughter, to wife. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, took it, and he gave him Exah, his daughter, to wife. So Exah married her uncle. Although by tradition, Genesis 11:26 is interpreted as Abraham being born when Terah was 70 years old, I challenge that interpretation by way of simple biblical math. Genesis 11:26 says, And Terah lived 70 years and begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Terah himself lived to be 205 years old after that. Genesis 11:32, And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Abraham did not leave Haran for Canaan until after Terah died. Acts 7:4, Then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans and dwelt in Haran, and from thence, when his father was dead, he removed him into this land wherein you now dwell. Abraham was only 75 when he left Haran. Genesis 12:4, So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. Now, take 205, Terah's death age, minus 75, Abraham's age at the time, and we got 130, the age of Terah when Abraham was born. Now, take 130, Terah's age at Abraham's birth, and minus 70, Terah's age at Haran's birth, and we see that Abraham is 60 years younger than his oldest brother, and he is 10 years older than Sarah, who was born when Haran was 70. So now, the question that arises, is the marriage legal biblically? Let's go to Leviticus 18, and I will be reading from the Complete Jewish Bible for clarity. We're going to read Leviticus 18, 6-20. None of you is to approach anyone who is a close relative in order to have sexual relations. I am Adonai, which means the Lord. You are not to have sexual relations with your father, and you are not to have sexual relations with your mother. She is your mother. Do not have sexual relations with her. Can't sleep with your parents. You are not to have sexual relations with your father's wife. That is your father's prerogative. You can't sleep with your stepmother. You are not to have sexual relations with your sister, the daughter of your father, or the daughter of your mother, whether born at home or elsewhere. Do not have sexual relations with her. Can't sleep with your sister. You are not to have sexual relations with your son's daughter or with your daughter's daughter. Do not have sexual relations with them, because their sexual disgrace will be your own. You can't sleep with your grandkids. So, That eliminates Terah from being the kinsman redeemer of Sarah. You are not to have sexual relations with your father's wife's daughter, born to your father, because she is your sister. Do not have sexual relations with her. Again, sisters and stepsisters are out. You are not to have sexual relations with your father's sister, because she is your father's close relatives. You are not to have sexual relations with your mother's sister, because she is your mother's close relatives. You are not to disgrace your father's brother by having sexual relations with his wife, because she is your aunt. Aunties are out of the question. You are not to have sexual relations with your daughter-in-law, because she is your son's wife. Do not have sexual relations with her. Can't sleep with your daughter-in-law. You are not to have sexual relations with your brother's wife, because this is your brother's prerogative. Sister-in-laws are out. You are not to have sexual relations with both a woman and her daughter, nor are you to have sexual relations with her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter. They are close relative to hers, and it would be shameful. That's self-explanatory. You are not to take a woman to be a rival with her sister and have sexual relations with her while her sister is still alive. Leave your girl sister alone. You are not to approach a woman in order to have sexual relations with her when she is unclean from her time of Niddah. Do not touch her at that time of the month. You are not to go to bed with your neighbor's wife and thus become unclean with her. In all these stipulations, none of the Hebraic cultural laws disqualified an uncle from marrying his niece. Now, let's look at a common relative to sort this out. Laban, the son of Bethuel, who was the son of Nahor, Abraham's brother. He lived at Haran in Mesopotamia. His sister Rebekah was Isaac's wife. Jacob, one of the sons of this marriage, fled to the house of Laban, whose daughters, Leah and Rachel, he eventually married. So, let me break this down. Laban was the son of Bethuel. You can find that in Genesis 28:5. And the brother of Isaac's wife, Rebekah, making them the grandchildren of Nahor and Milcah. You can find it in Genesis 24:24. Abraham's brother and Sarah's sister. You could find Genesis 11:27-29. Making Isaac and Rebekah second cousins. Jacob's wives, Leah and Rachel, were the daughters of Laban. You can find that in Genesis 29:16. The brother of his mother, Rebekah, Genesis 25:28, making Jacob both Leah and Rachel's first cousin. The ancient Israelites, as well as still today, many Eastern nations practice endogamy. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, endogamy is marriage within a specific group as required by custom or law. The Collins Dictionary says endogamy, the custom of marrying only within one's own group as a clan, tribe, etc. This was the cultural standard in Israel. Tobit 4:12 says, beware of all whoredom, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, and take not a strange woman to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe. For we are the children of the prophets Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, even that they all married wives of their own kindred, and were blessed in their children, and their seed shall inherit the land. Numbers 36:7. So shall not the inheritance of the children of Israel remove from tribe to tribe, for every one of the children of Israel shall keep himself to the inheritance of the tribe of his fathers. Therefore, though may be strange to us, Abraham broke none of God's ordinances by marrying Sarah. Genesis 26:5 tells us, because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. I pray that I provided clarity on this issue. Be blessed, family. Shalom.